That's all it was worth to him. You got to remember, we're showing why these people, that this writer is using these people as examples of going back. They're going to sell their birthright. As a Christian, if you go back into apostasy, if you go back into the world, you forfeit your birthright, no different than Esau. Did you know that? This is the example he's trying to give to these folks, these Jews, that if they do this right, this is the example. So they have to think about what they're doing. Because they were enlightened. When you read the book of Hebrews, it said these individuals were enlightened. Let me read it for you. You can read it for yourself. Okay, look at in Hebrews chapter 10. Look at Hebrews chapter 10 and verse 32. Okay? Hebrews 10:32. You guys there? But recall the former days. Now remember, he's talking, this inspired writer is talking to these Jewish Christians, all right, that are going, what they were going to do. He's trying to write these things out to stop them from doing this. But recall the former days in which, after you were illuminated, enlightened, you endured a great struggle of suffering, partly while you were made a spectacle both of reproaches and tribulations, and partly while you became companions of those who were treated. The idea what I wanted you to see was they were enlightened. They were enlightened in the sense with the gospel. They knew they had, they even suffered for it. They lost property for it, according to what you read in those verses. And so they gave up quite a bit. Now, they're going to go, and we were talking about Esau, and he gave up his birthright. He sold it for a bowl of stew to his brother. And so he is going to lose this inheritance. Of course, it's by faith that we're seeing this done. Let's see, 27. Look at Genesis 27. I can't read the whole thing, but let's just go to 33. I'm going to go to 30. Let's go to 30. He blessed Jacob. Isaac blessed Jacob. And so now it happened in verse 30. Now it happened as soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, and Jacob had scarcely gone out from his presence with Isaac his father, that Esau his brother came in from hunting. And he was also made a savory food and brought it to his father. His father asked him to do this, go out to the field, get his favorite food, and so on. Okay? Anyway, so we went out and did it. And we brought back to him, he's already lost the birthright to Isaac. Okay? To Jacob, I'm sorry. And he also made a savory food and brought it to his father and said to his father, let my father arise and eat of his son's game, that your soul may bless me. And his father Isaac said to him, who are you? Okay, remember he was blinded, he was getting old in age, he was his eyesight was deteriorated, and when they brought him to him, when they brought Jacob to Isaac, he would feel him, he could smell him, because the mother Rebecca put the clothes on him, and anyway, they could smell the clothes from his brother, the food, everything of this nature was done. So the blessing, Isaac gave it to Jacob. Okay, so Jacob comes in now. Esau comes from the field. He goes into the house or into the tent, wherever it was, and he brings the food that he got from the field. He prepared it for Isaac. And then it says he brought out 31. He brought the savory fruit and brought to his father. And he said to his father, let my father arise and eat the son's game, that your soul may bless me. And his father Isaac said, who are you? And so he said, I am your son, your firstborn, Esau. And then Isaac trembled exceedingly. Notice, Isaac trembled exceedingly. And he said, who? Where is the one who hunted the game and brought it to me? I ate all of it before you came, and I have blessed him. And indeed, he shall be blessed. Jacob is blessed as the inheritance. And when Esau heard the words of his father, he cried exceedingly great and bitter cry, and said to his father, bless me also, O my father. But he said, your brother came with deceit and had taken away your blessing. And Esau said, it is and he is not rightly named Jacob, for he has supplanted me these 2 times. The supplant of the name. And he took away my birthright. Well, wait a second. The birthright, he sold his birthright originally. It was only worth a pot of stew. You see? How much did Judas Iscariot sell his for? Anybody want to take a shot at it? 30 pieces of silver. I want to ask, what's the price you're willing to pay? How much do you want to give up your birthright for? Want to give it up for maybe an aunt and uncle, a parent, father, mother, sister, brother? Which one? Which one have you given it up for? Which one have you not obeyed the gospel for? How much did you sell it for? You see my point? A bowl of stew. Oh, Vic, I'm going to tell you. I know the Bible teaches that he that believeth and is baptized shall be saved. You want the remission of his sins? This is what the Bible says. Don't sell it out for a bowl of stew. We laugh at him. We say, how stupid. This is what he's trying to show these writers. This writer is trying to show these Jewish Christians that are going back into Judaism what he sold out for. And so that's the example that they can run through their mind as a Christian. How much am I selling out for? Comment.
Hey, Vic.
Go ahead.
It says by faith Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau.
Yep.
Isaac was not aware of who he was blessing.
Mm-hmm.
So how was it by faith that Isaac did when he didn't realize he was fulfilling?
Good question. How do you want to answer it? Okay. Wait a minute. Oh, excuse me. Okay, we got 2. Sherry, put her hand up first.
Well, I was going to say, I think the faith was that he believed he was doing what God wanted.
Yeah.
He was deceived by Rebekah and Jacob. And we know the scriptures say that Jacob was Rebekah's favorite. But I've often wondered, the scriptures also say that while she carried the twins in her womb, she was told the elder would serve the younger. And I've often wondered how much that affected. But I think the faith there was he was literally trusting, had full confidence that he was doing what he was supposed to be doing.
I agree with that. Go ahead. Now, one more. Go ahead, Stanley.
Well, I was just going to say, when it's all said and done, the Lord's will was accomplished.
Right. Lord's will is accomplished. Right. There's 2 passages that show that this is, that will probably help us out. There's, you got the passage we just read, okay, where he definitely blessed Jacob. Okay? When you go to chapter 28, it's brought up again. So if it wasn't God's will, in other words, it wouldn't be there. We wouldn't have this. Let me put it to you this way. Look at Genesis 28:1. And then when Isaac called Jacob and blessed him and charged him and said to him, you shall not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan, and arise and go to Padan Aram in the house of Bethuel, your mother's father, and take yourself a wife from there, the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. And may God Almighty bless you and make you fruitful and multiply, that you may assemble your people and give you a blessing to Abraham, to your descendants with you, that you may inherit the land in which you were a stranger, which God gave to Abraham. There it is. It's certified again. The idea of the blessing that Isaac gave Jacob was one of God's will. Okay? And Isaac reinstates this in this chapter. Go ahead.
I was going to say, isn't that what this entire chapter really is about? Is knowing what God's will is, and having full confidence and trust and doing it the best that you can. And that Isaac, under his conditions, was doing that.
Exactly was. It would be like Abraham offered his son Isaac. When you offer up the son, it's totally, now you think about it from a human point of view. Abraham, as far as the son of promise, he was near 100 years old. So the Bible says, good as dead. Sarah, not supposed to have children. Right? And now God says that through Isaac, the seed will come. He is the son of promise. Everybody on the same page, right? So now we get Isaac, he's about 17 to 20, 22, right? We got that down. And so now this same child that God says through promise that the seed would come, that innumerable like the stars of the sky and the sand of the sea, and now God wants him to offer him up as a sacrifice. Now that is contrary to our way of thinking, isn't it? That's completely opposite of what we would say. How can God, this is how we say. How would God, who told me to do this, and he's going to bring all these people to him through this blessing, or through this choice promise, Isaac, and if I kill him, how's he going to do that?
Same way you gave birth to him.
You see? See the problem? In man's way of thinking, how can a person go and dip in water and for the remission of his sins and have his sins remitted? Well, that's in God's hands, not mine. Our part is to obey it, like Abraham. Those that refuse baptism for the remission of sin are against what God teaches. That's simple. It is that simple. If not, why not? Prove it. Prove it not true. It's contrary. How can water remit sins? Naaman went in and dipped 6 times. How can water get rid of leprosy? Because God said it. That's why. And God told him to do a certain thing a certain way, and you do it. Then it's in God's hands. So when you die, when you leave this earth, and we all leave this earth behind sooner or later, that is how your remission of sins will come. Because God said it. And that's the way it is. That's how Abraham looked at it. Didn't he? So, somebody here this morning having been baptized for his sins? Why be foolish? Why do that? He says he's going to do it. It's either you believe him or you don't. Okay. A mark of true faith is a soul that yields to God. Isaac perceived the hand of God at work. Okay? He did not murmur or rebel, but yield to the will of God. By faith, verse 21, by faith Jacob, when he was dying, blessed both the sons of Joseph and worshiped, leaning upon the top of his staff. This verse relates 2 incidents in Jacob's life. They were inverted order. The blessings of the 2 sons of Joseph, Jacob's blessed the younger Ephraim first. Genesis 48:14. Thus he did by faith. Notice, bowing to worship over the head of the staff refers to an earlier point in Jacob's life, Genesis 27. Jacob, knowing that he was near death, made Joseph promise to bury him in the land of his fathers and not in Egypt. In other words, when the time comes, Joseph died, Old Testament character, all would be familiar. All these Jews definitely know who Joseph was. We could look at Joseph and see the providence or the hand of God. There's so many reasons for this, but the idea is that that he did what God said to do. Okay? And with Joseph, great character of the Old Testament. If you've never read the story of Joseph, you need to read it. You need to read the story of Joseph. Okay? All the situations he was in, his brothers sold him out. They hated him. One of them, I think it was Reuben, wanted to kill him. And his other brother said, no, we can't do that. So they threw him in a well, a dried out well. And a caravan was coming by, and they sold him. They sold their brother out. They hated him. They actually hated him. And when you see God's worked his plan up, when you see the providence of God, okay, and that helped these men, by the way. I want you to know that Jacob, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they can remember these stories of Joseph and how they can see God's will being played out through Joseph. How they brought Joseph into second command. We would say that he is a vice president. He is like the vice president of the United States. That's how Joseph was. He had everything in Pharaoh's power was given into Joseph's hand. Man, when you read the story of Joseph, this is incredible. How God took him from out of that well to second command in Egypt. Well, we need to think about a little bit how Egypt, how it was. The United States is the most powerful country in the world today. I think all will agree. we have other nations that have more people, but I believe that power-wise, if you want to look at it in that sense, I believe that the United States has the most power in the world. And so Egypt, during that period of time, was the most powerful nation on the earth. We'll read about that a little bit later with Moses and how important it was for Moses. When you read Josephus, for an example, it says that Moses was a commander in the military under Pharaoh. A lot of folks don't realize it's who Moses was, and that's how Josephus brings up. Anyway, there's so many things here about Joseph that's going to be really incredible. As they bring up some of these stories about Joseph, these Jews would have been familiar. They would have known who he was and how God worked through Joseph to take these people and bring them into a land. They were on that land for about 420 years in Egypt, from the time that Abraham was Isaac. Well, it was actually Jacob, and the 12 sons went into Egypt. I think the number that went into Egypt was about 75, if I remember right. You can correct me. But at the time when they went over there, it was about 430 years that they stayed in captivity. Well, they stayed in Egypt, I should say. There's some things that we can learn along the way here too. But the point is that for the 400 years, they were in Egypt. Providence of God. Providence of God. By faith, Joseph, when he died, made mention of the departing of the children of Israel and gave the commandments concerning his bones. Okay, real quick, take a look. The last chapter in Genesis. Okay, last chapter in Genesis, verse 24, 25, and 26. You'll see what Joseph says. Give Joseph the respect he deserves. Second in command of Pharaoh, very powerful individual, had the power to take life and death if he wanted to at his will. That was given to him by Pharaoh. So give him the respect that's due him, that God put him in that position. Okay? And Joseph said to his brother, verse 24, I am dying, but God will surely visit you and bring you out of this land to the land of which he swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Then Joseph took an oath from his children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you, and you shall carry my bones from here. And so Joseph died, being 110 years old, and they embalmed him, and he was put into a coffin in Egypt. Now watch. One page later, Exodus chapter 1. Now these are the names of the children of Israel who came to Egypt, and each man to his household came to Jacob. All right, so from the time of the death of Joseph to the time of the Exodus is 400 years, approximately 400 years. The United States has many, I don't know the population, but think about how the population was that grew in Egypt in 400 years. Even if you say different kings, different time periods, even go 300 years, wouldn't make no difference. You're talking a lot of people that are going to come out of Egypt. That was from these boys, from the actual 75 or 76 that came into Egypt, of how many people from that period of time on, those hundreds of years, became a nation. So much so that the Egyptians were afraid of the number was so great that they could even probably conquer Egypt or go to war against Egypt. Okay? Before his death, Joseph saw the promises of God coming about, and that the Israelites would leave Egypt. He commanded those bones be carried out of Egypt and buried in the land of promise. I believe he's buried in the same place in Machpelah of where Abraham was. Abraham bought that piece of land where his family would be buried. And the idea of they took his bones in his coffin and they took it with them 400 years later. What do you think? See the hand of God again? 400 years. John F. Kennedy got shot in 1963, and they still don't know a lot of things about it. They even got it on film. It's unbelievable, isn't it? Moses, a man of faith, 11:23. By faith, Moses, when he was born, was hid 3 months by his parents because they saw that he was a proper child, and they were not afraid of the king's commandment. Okay, what was the king's commandment? What was the king's commandment they were not afraid of?
Male boys get killed.
They were going to take, and all the males need to be with, thrown in the water and drowned. You know, a lot of times, and you hear about this, and guys get, they have cats, put them in a cage and they'll drown them. They do. Right? You guys know that. The king made a command that, why would he want to do that? First of all, why would Pharaoh want to take and kill all the males?
Because he thought they were going to take over.
They were going to take over. They were getting so huge in number. The only way he could do it, we got to do something about this, because pretty soon they're going to take over the country. And so the command came that all the children had to be drowned or thrown into the Nile River. Males. Wait a second. These parents of Moses did not obey that command. Hey, wait a second. Are we to obey the commands of the land?
No.
No? Why is that, Pansy?
Not if it interferes with.
Oh. Do you have any Bible example to prove that one? Daniel? Anybody else? How about Peter James? Anybody else? How about when they were preaching in Jerusalem and they came to him, and Peter and John, I believe it was, and they were preaching, and the Jewish authorities came to him. Didn't we command thee not to preach that anymore in this city, that doctrine? And I think basically he said, well, whether it be right inside of men, judge ye. But what did he say?
We're going to obey God.
We'd rather obey God rather than man. So, when you're absolutely sure that it's against the commandments of God, you do not have to obey that command. If it was tomorrow morning, they passed a law in the United States saying that you must destroy, abort every child that's born in your family. You're only allowed to have one child. We're going to abort the rest. Do you have to obey that? No, you do not. You do not have that right to obey that, even though that was the command. In China, right now, what do they allow? Babies? They're allowed 1, maybe 2 boys.
No, maybe it's 1.
No girls.
I heard they're lifting that ban a little bit because they're running out of people.
They're running out of people. Moses was a great man of faith in his life. He divided into 3 periods of time, 40 years each. And when you read it, it'll be that simple too. Okay, the first 40 years he was in Egypt. 40 years. So we know how old basically he left Egypt. 40 years old. The second 40 years old, he's in the wilderness of Midian. That's where he became a herder. Okay? He was a herder for 40 years. And then, with the family of Jethro, in the last 40 years of Moses' life, he was a leader of the Israelites, leading them out of the wilderness as they journeyed toward Canaan. In this verse, one can see the faith of Moses' parents. It couldn't have been the faith of Moses. Moses was just a child. It's the faith of his parents. Okay? The Israelites were under inhumane treatment at the hands of Pharaoh. Exodus 1:8. Moses was a proper child. He was a beautiful child. This describes his attractive beauty, that it was unique. The parents of Moses saw in him a distinctive quality that could be used for God's purposes one day. So this is how the parents looked at Moses. And you know how they built a vessel, and it would float and so on. They found it in the bush berries or the bush, what was the thing that? Brushes. It was Pharaoh's daughter. Was it his Pharaoh's daughter that found him? They find Moses. She sends her handmaiden out to bring that basket over. She brings the basket over. This is Pharaoh's daughter, the daughter of Pharaoh. So Moses, he comes right into the household of Pharaoh. Providence, what do you think? Okay, so he's raised for 40 years in the household of Pharaoh. That's like being in the house of the White House of the United States. That's all I can liken it to in my mind. And he's taught in everything of Pharaoh. He's taught in every doctrine, everything that's taught. Moses, and this is critical as we study this thing. He was studied and learned of all the things of the Egyptians. Everything they were taught, educated, by the best of his day. Religiously, financially, medically, he would have been brought up the very best, had the best seat in the house, so to speak, as we would say. And by faith, Moses, when he come to years, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer, verse 24, 26, I'll finish it right there. Choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God, than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season, esteeming the reproach of Christ. Whoa! Notice that. Esteeming the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasure of Egypt. Wait a minute, there's about thousands of years difference here. How did Christ get into this passage? Reproaches of Christ greater riches than the treasures of Egypt, for he had respect unto the recompense of the reward. Let's study that next week. How could Christ come into this picture of Moses during that period of time? Because the Hebrew writer is making this, the writer of Hebrews makes this statement. He's using Christ as an example. Study it. See you next Sunday morning. Thank you for being here.
So you think you're going to get out of here? Wait a minute. Are you going to still sharing? Absolutely. Has it just run out? Well, what aggravates me, I get something one day and it's fine, go back and do it again, and how's Jude? Long live the bird. Hey, that's good. I saw you down there. Was she sassy or what?
I'll be in the pulpit, I believe.